Hi guys! Today we'll be recapping a story called The Strongest Characters in the World Are Obsessed with Me. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot. Enjoy! The first setting of this story is at the Frederick Empire's training grounds, where the knights are getting beat up while practicing with their leader, Commander Pesteros, who is taking their practice a little too seriously because he is in frenzied transcendental mode. Let me tell you a little bit about transcendentals. The Frederick Empire was once graced by a dragon who bestowed magic on every generation of the imperial line and the 4 major duchies, resulting in one child born with magic known as a transcendental. Their intelligence and physical abilities were unparalleled to humans, but with great strength comes great vulnerability. The more they use magic, the more it corrupts their soul, and the more they will go insane. No one can stop them once they go berserk. The only thing to do is wait for other transcendentals to come and save them. Commander Pesteros is like a lion preying on a bunny night right now. But thankfully, his sister Dahlia comes running and scolds him while touching his face, causing him to return to normal. Dahlia Pesteros is not originally from this world. What world is this, you may wonder? It is none other than a popular dating sim she played in her previous life, and in this world, she is receiving the favor of all transcendentals. Today, 2 transcendentals, Meldon Arthas with his long hair and tan skin, and Luwain Bluefort with blonde short hair and blue eyes, both ask to be her ball partner. But they are both turned down because her partner, who comes running to hug her, is Adalicia Benitez, the main character of the dating sim, Ouroboros Labyrinth. Excuse me, they keep showing handsome men and now a pretty lady? This is a tragic game in which all the Transcendentals are madly in love with Adalicia. The only catch is that Dahlia has snatched her position. Our FL is living the dream. Okay, let's go back to the beginning, shall we? Dahlia, who looked very adorable, had a flashback to her previous life as she sipped her tea, not long after she turned 13. She trembles as she recalls that, while the game Ouroboros Labyrinth is full of visually appealing characters, no matter what routes she takes, they all have awful ends. And now she is sister of Hikan Pesteros, one of the male leads and the game's most insane villain. Something Dahlia has no idea how to handle, as Hikan is the only child in the game, and she originally doesn't exist. Based on what she knows, Hikan will go berserk in the game and be slain by the Emperor, and that ending is consistent throughout all routes. Thus, if it occurs, Dahlia will also be executed. Hikan is currently 16 years old, and he will go completely berserk following his magical awakening at the age of 18, giving her plenty of time to figure out how to stay alive. Dahlia has never met Hikan before, and based on what she has heard, he's now living with a relative, so she believes they will continue to live separately as strangers for the rest of their lives. However, this does not appear to be the case anymore, as when she opens her door after hearing Darlene, her nanny's voice outside, the first person she sees is none other than her brother Hikan. He hasn't awakened his abilities just yet, but his appearance makes her sick to her stomach. Then Hikan breaks the news to her right away that their father has died. Perhaps it is because she now recalls her past life, Dahlia doesn't seem to feel devastated to learn that their father has passed away. Not only that, but Dahlia has always been alone since their mother died shortly after she was born. And their father is constantly busy and never checks on her, which leads her to believe that Hikan went insane in the game because he's lonely with his family. While Dahlia is preoccupied with her thoughts, she glances at Hikan's cold stares and realizes that her brother is evaluating her value and potential for his own benefit. She has already anticipated that Hikan is cold and lacks human sympathy, causing her fear to increase. But she is able to gather herself as she rationalizes that since Hikan's fate is to be executed and she cannot simply leave their house freely since she's just a kid, all she can do now is ensure she does not come across as a threat to her brother. She immediately assumes the persona of a naive and innocent younger sister in order to avoid making Hikan suspicious of her. Then, she plans to patiently wait for her opportunity to flee. Quickly playing her role, she offers Hikan the piece of bread she was munching on, hoping it will help him feel better about the sad news. However, Hikan aggressively grabs it from her and gestures as if he is tossing it away, causing Dahlia to cover her eyes in fear, but expecting it anyway. Because if he does, it would signify that Hikan views her as an immature and stupid sister, making her mission a success. Dahlia is waiting nervously for the impact, but when Hikan notices that she's frightened, He drops his hand and simply informs her that the funeral is tomorrow before leaving. Sir, that is not how you hold a croissant. Anyway, Dahlia has no idea if it was successful or not, but one thing is certain. Now that she faces Hikon, who can make her whole body shake in fear, she definitely needs to leave their home as soon as possible, as she can't stay in the same space as her terrifying brother. And in order to live with a new identity somewhere far away, Dahlia realizes she will need a lot of money, and selling her clothes and pearls will not suffice. Given her familiarity with the game's events and the secrets carried by the male leads, she plans to use these to her advantage. However, for the time being, she has decided to stay at their mansion and play the role of Hikon's naive sister until she saves up enough money to leave. The next day, everyone gathers at the funeral, and none of the siblings have shed a single tear except Dahlia's nanny, Darlene, who is sorry for her, so she holds her nanny's hand, assuring her that she is fine. The only person she feels safe confiding in at their mansion is Darlene. But she knows Darlene will faint if she tells her she's leaving soon, so she plans to keep it a secret. It's good to know that she has someone she can rely on. Just then, she overhears their relatives discussing how Hikon, whom they view as a mere 16-year-old child, is not yet mature enough to assume the duchy's responsibilities. Instead, they plan to appoint Julio, a cousin of their father's, as a proxy duke in the meantime. However, Dahlia is convinced that her relatives are taking advantage of the situation for their own selfish gain. She also knows that Hikon is aware of this, so she thinks her brother would take up the duke's seat on his own. Dahlia, looking at Hikon's expressionless face, has no idea what he's thinking. But being the innocent little sister she is, she tries to console him by holding his cold hand. Their genes are outstanding, and both of them are stunningly beautiful. Hikon scolds her without looking at her for grabbing his hand without permission. But Dahlia is surprised that he isn't yanking her hand away when their greedy relatives approach. Well, I'm just pleased Hikon didn't cause a scene or appear disgusted toward his sister like in other cases. Hikon takes his hand away from Dahlia and turns to face his relatives, who wish to inform him that they believe he requires a proxy until he turns 18. Hikon tells them outright that they are not pesteros to discuss the business of their household, but they say Dahlia is too young and requires adult supervision. Hikon then returns his attention to Dahlia, who is now in a state of panic, believing that he can get rid of her whenever she bothers him. In her defense, she clings to him, claiming that she prefers to be protected by her brother, and with weeping eyes, she tells them how shameful it is that they're discussing such issues at their father's funeral, prompting them to back out quietly. Looking at their parents' tomb, Hikon acknowledges that it's just the two of them now and leaves quickly. After a month since the funeral, distant relatives pay frequent visits to discuss the proxy issue, emphasizing their desire to benefit from the Pesteros duchy. Since they couldn't get through Hikon, they all went to see Dahlia, who gave them the same answer. She doesn't want anybody but her brother, which has been circulating in high society, with the notion that the younger sister of the Pesteros duchy cannot survive without her brother. Although Dahlia feels a little insulted, she thinks it's a good thing, because Hikon is probably letting down his guard and she doesn't have to worry about their relatives coming over anymore, because her protests eventually cause them to stop. Dahlia is presently having tea with the Duchess of Blueport, who is also a transcendental, chatting about what happened while she was gone. Dahlia's father was so heartbroken about his wife's death that he ignored Dahlia, so the Duchess of Blueport stepped in to look after her. Dahlia can't believe the Duchess is in her 40s, possibly because she's transcendental, with the ability to create great protective barriers that could block everything. However, before her powers manifested, she lost her husband in a fire and sustained burns all over her body, which is why she wears gloves and a mask to conceal those injuries. The Duchess did not enter high society because she dislikes touching people, and Dahlia has never touched her hand. Yet Dahlia loves being with her, the woman who treated her like a daughter when she was a neglected baby until now. Dahlia cutely informs the Duchess that she finds her brother frightening after meeting him for the first time in 13 years, and the Duchess adds that normal people are usually wary of transcendentals because of a few accidents. A tragic occurrence occurred 30 years ago when Duke Arthas went berserk and slaughtered all of the magicians in the Imperial Palace, and as a result, transcendentals must now report their emotional states. However, according to the game, a transcendental will go berserk soon, but it was not specified what the incident was or when it occurred. All she knows is that it occurred at a party, and from that point on, the transcendental's frenzies accelerated at a rate that even the Imperial family could not control. Transcendentals are frightening, but Dahlia has never felt scared of the Duchess, and she isn't afraid that her brother is also a transcendental, but rather that Hikon will sell her off. She starts overthinking things and starts babbling about how she may be sold off to a middle-aged man or how Hikon could bring a man to her so she could give birth to a transcendental child. Dahlia continues, cutely informing the Duchess of her plan to leave their home once she reaches adulthood, leading Duchess Blueport to choke on her tea. I love the Duchess's maternal approach to Dahlia, as she reminds her that it's still too early to consider leaving since Dahlia and Hikon have only been living together for a month. The Duchess then pats Dahlia's hand, and as a transcendental herself, she understands that Hikon is also enduring a hellish and lonely life, so she sincerely wishes that Dahlia and her brother can get closer. I can really visualize the Duchess as a mother figure, but I'm intrigued to see the person behind the mask. Dahlia is on a quest to maintain her reputation as an innocent sister, so she continues to linger around Hikon and shower him with love. She went so far as to learn origami from her private instructor, Miss Mashu, and craft a turtle to present to Hikon, only to have it turned down. Next, she learned to draw and planned to give Hikon a portrait of himself, but he mistook her drawing for a devil. Well, dear, you really did him dirty. However, given how evil he is in the game, being rejected or ignored by Hikon is nothing, and she is relieved that her brother appears to have no intention of killing her or selling her off. Today, our sweetheart little girl is working on a flower crown for Hikon with the help of their gardener, Bucky, so she gives him one as well. Dahlia places it on his head and smiles broadly, much to Bucky's delight. That interaction is just too cute! In the end, Dahlia makes extra flower crowns to share with the Duchess and her attendants. She's too precious. Just as she's about to give her brother the last flower crown, an important memory pops into her head. Because she was so engrossed in the game, she actually purchased the limited edition secret book, which revealed that Hikon's biggest secret is that he has a pollen allergy. Realizing that now, she has no choice but to put down the flower crown and leave, not knowing that Hikon is actually observing her from his office. Dahlia, his only sibling, represents everything his mother yearned for. A normal child, unlike him. Hikon had every intention of getting rid of Dahlia if she caused any trouble when they first met, but he soon comes to terms with the fact that his sister is nothing more than a carefree child who is constantly bothering him. He chooses to keep her by his side until she is no longer useful, but he is still annoyed by Dahlia's persistent wandering around him and showering him with affection and gifts. Dahlia's mission of being Hikon's innocent sister is going well, and her only concern now is how to raise funds. Knowing her nanny will be there for her no matter what, she approaches her with the request that she needs a slush fund. Dahlia explains that she is frightened that her brother will kick her out of the family, so she wants to save money on her own, and to her surprise, Darlene right away holds her hand and offers to help her in any way she can. Darlene helped her sell her clothing and jewels, but this did not last long because the staff noticed her clothes were disappearing. Now that Dahlia has managed to accumulate an okay amount of money, she has increased her schemes and is now happy to keep it in her treasure box. But she still needs to find a different way to get money, so she asks the Duchess for suggestions. Though the Duchess is startled that Dahlia's young mind has come up with all these plans, she informs her that the former Duke Pesteros has a lot of valuable books she can sell. Dahlia realizes their father reads a lot, so she wants to uncover rare first edition books in their collection, hide them, and sell them later. Dahlia enters the study and hurriedly examines the books before anybody else arrives. But she recognizes that the books on the ground level aren't worth much, so she uses the ladder to check the books on the top shelf. As she checks the books, she notices that they are all about transcendentals, so she takes one, which is a book about understanding the nature of transcendentals and where they come from. She inspects the book's contents, and she hits the jackpot. It's a first edition, until she hears Hikon's voice calling to her from behind, causing her to fall off the ladder. Hikon takes the book and reads some sentences from it that claim that transcendentals are not humans, then looks back at Dahlia to see whether she agrees. The discovery that she's reading a book about transcendentals as distinct beings will completely destroy her naive sister image. Lucky for her, her brain cells continue to function even after a fall, so she presents Duchess Blueport, her transcendental friend, as an excuse, and argues that she never has negative thoughts about transcendentals. She then goes on to say that she merely wants to learn more about transcendentals so she will better understand him, which irritates Hikon even more. He approaches Dahlia, his gaze fixed on her eyes as he asserts that she couldn't possibly understand him. Then he continues to tell her about their grandfather, who was also a transcendental and went berserk, destroying the Pesteros mansion and even trying to kill his own daughter, their mother. This traumatized their mother to the point that she began fearing transcendentals. Yet she became one herself. But what triggered her fear more was when she also gave birth to a transcendental son. Dahlia has no idea about the history of the Pisteros family because the game never addressed Hikon's past. But she learned today that the reason she never saw Hikon at home was because their own mother kicked him out of fear. So basically, they're all suffering from generational trauma. Tragic indeed. Dahlia speaks up with all her might, assuring him that, despite his scary story, he is still her one and only brother, whom she trusts to be a good person. Hikon merely glances into the distance and goes away, leaving her there, her heart thumping so hard from nervousness. Darlene is now treating Dahlia's injured knee and is furious because Hikon did not help her at all. But now that Dahlia understands Hikon, she just states that her brother is not a horrible guy and smiles widely, saying that she only needs to try harder so Hikon will like her one day. Fortunately, our girl did not bash her brother, as Hikon went by her room and overheard her saying nice things about him. Since they first met, Dahlia has been a constant source of frustration for him. He knows the little girl fears him, but he also sees sympathy in her eyes. She has this peculiar habit of smiling broadly whenever she looks at him, which makes him feel strange. Yay! Her hard work has paid off! But he plans to shut his heart and starts remembering how their mother hates him, a transcendental, because he is so aloof, self-reliant, and smart. When Hikon was just 3 years old, his mother's friend and her son paid them a visit at their mansion. Throughout their time in the mansion, the child constantly irritated him by insisting, as if it were a disease, that Hikon is transcendental. The spoiled brat then proceeded to shatter the very toy he had just grabbed from Hikon. As a result, Hikon lost his composure and pushed the child down the steps, breaking his leg. Spoiled brat deserved it. However, Hikon's mother never inquired as to what happened, believing that he had planned everything from the start and began to despise him even more. After Dahlia entered the picture, his mother began to ignore him even more and dumped him in the countryside for 10 years. Worse, their mother's dying wish to their father was that Hikon never return to the mansion, and now he was only able to return because both of his parents had died. Damn, Big Bro went through a lot! But I hope he realizes one day that Dahlia did not receive any affection from their parents either. A smug expression crosses Hikon's face as he gazes at his mother's portrait, fueling his resentment towards his family for abandoning him. Suddenly, Dahlia's picture pops into his head, and he swears to himself, almost as if he's trying to brainwash himself, to never love her. I can't wait for Hikon to gradually give in to Dahlia's overwhelming power of cuteness. Dahlia had been with Hikon for 6 months, and she had not ceased loving him tremendously. Although Hikon remains intimidating, he appears to be less wary of her now compared to when he was enraged with her in the study. She is concerned, though, because she has run out of methods to win his attention and must continue to appear like a sweet, naive, and stupid younger sister to him. Dahlia is currently enjoying a picnic with Duchess Blueport, and she asks her what she could do for her brother to make him like her. To her surprise, the Duchess requests some paper and a pen from the servant and discovers that Hikon needs the approval of a transcendental to prove his sanity before taking the position of a duke. Dahlia tries to stop the Duchess, and she knows that in the future, Hikon will go berserk, and she fears that the Duchess, who has been so kind, will be put in an uncomfortable situation and become involved. However, the Duchess simply smiles and tells Dahlia that it is only a formality with no real significance, before handing Dahlia the letter in the hopes that it will help her get along better with her brother. Dahlia sobs and expresses her gratitude to the Duchess, recognizing how much she's treasured by her. Such a wonderful lady you are, Duchess. Dahlia holds the document, concerned that Hikon will throw it away, but she offers it to him nonetheless, pleased to inform him that Duchess Blueport will testify to his sanity. But he stops her, informing her that he already has the Emperor's approval and doesn't need it, causing our little girl to be so devastated since she expected him to appreciate it. However, she is confused when Hikon takes the document from her, stating to use it for something else and orders her to leave. Nah, I'm sure Big Bro will just keep it. Cutie. Following that encounter, Hikon continued to show no interest in her, but she gradually became less afraid of him. One day, she is daydreaming when Hikon enters her room and informs her that the Emperor has asked for an audience to make him a duke. She pauses for a bit because they aren't close enough to share things like this, so she uneasily congratulates him. But what surprises her the most is when he adds that the Emperor has requested her to accompany him. He then instructs her to prepare for their trip to the Imperial Palace the day after tomorrow. Darlene assists Dahlia in preparing for her visit to the Imperial Palace, and our girl looks really pretty in her pink dress. She gets surprised to see Hikon waiting for her outside the carriage, so she thanks him but lets the carriage guy assist her inside as she does not believe her brother will hold her hand. Dahlia queries Hikon inside the carriage about why the Emperor invited her, but he never responds and just clenches his hands, causing her to wonder why he is suddenly in a bad mood until they arrive at the palace. Hikon comes out first, and Dahlia allows the carriage guy to assist her while Hikon glares angrily at them. Brother is jealous! They are greeted by the reigning emperor, Alexander Duncan Michelio II, a very handsome transcendental in his late 30s. No way! The emperor appears younger than Hikon! Dahlia admires him, but despite being a transcendental, he has no route in the game due to his age. His power is that he can read people's emotions through physical contact and can convey any positive or negative thoughts they may have for him. In the game, his self-control was so powerful that he maintained his sanity until his death. Sounds like a green flag emperor to me. She then learns that she was summoned to witness her brother's title conferment ceremony, so the emperor calls Hikon to come near so he can present him the official documents. Then this goofy emperor just pats him here and there, and ta-da! He announces Hikon as the new Duke of Pesteros. The emperor urges Hikon to quickly work on his rising workload and invites Dahlia to approach him next. He looks at our adorable Dahlia and begins wondering how Hikon came to be adored by such a cute younger sister. He then goes on to explain that a transcendental person's life is often harsh and lonely, but he believes Dahlia has softened Hikon's heart, which surprises her, although Hikon disagrees. To end their conversation, the emperor extends a hand and expresses his gratitude to Dahlia for visiting the palace. Dahlia recalls that the emperor always shakes hands with everybody he speaks with, not to lighten the mood, but to assess their emotions, and she is no exception. Since no one can say no to shaking hands with the ruler, she extends her hand, and they do just that when the emperor suddenly appears distraught. The emperor continues to hold onto her hand, so she calls on him, causing the emperor to eventually pull back, but he seems noticeably disturbed by the handshake. After composing himself, the emperor apologizes to Dahlia and starts to bring up the fact that his son would be perfect for her since she doesn't have a fiancé yet. Our girl simply giggles since she believes the emperor is joking, but is taken aback when the emperor appears serious and, really charming at that. Forget the sons, do you need a wife, sir? The emperor has 2 sons who are around Dahlia's age. The somewhat immature crown prince, Leonard, and the reserved but good-natured second son, Cedric. When Dahlia sees the emperor's serious intent, she finds herself at a loss for words and starts to worry that she might really get engaged. As she quavers in fear, she realizes that Hikon is probably ecstatic about the news because it gives him a chance to dump her. However, she is taken aback when Hikon defends her by saying that his sister will not get engaged to anyone. Hikon must have spotted her trembling, so he tells the emperor that Dahlia dislikes the idea of marriage, causing the emperor to sob jokingly. So the emperor is actually joking after all. After the Pesteros siblings leave, the emperor sighs with relief. Being a transcendental is extremely tough, and the more he makes use of his powers, the more his urge to destroy everything becomes. But he has come this far by suppressing it because he genuinely loves his people and the world. Oh, he's not only attractive and never ages, but also a decent ruler. However, something weird happened today. The instant he held Dahlia's hand, his mind cleared up, as if he had returned to the time when he hadn't awakened yet. However, he eventually brushes the idea out of his mind, reasoning that no one can cleanse a soul tainted by magic. Very interesting. The Pesteros siblings are now walking back to their carriage, and Dahlia takes the chance to thank Hikon for preventing her from getting engaged. Hikon, as serious as ever, explains to her that the emperor is usually a jokester and that she is an idiot for taking the emperor's words seriously. But he does find it surprising that Dahlia is opposed to the concept of marriage. Dahlia is panting, maybe from her heavy dress, and is having trouble answering since she's attempting to catch up to him, who is walking quite quickly. She manages to explain that it's because she hopes to be with him for a long time, before she unexpectedly loses her footing and falls. Dahlia feels ashamed as Hikon sighs and moves towards her, telling her she's stupid before carrying her like a sack of potatoes. She is so shocked that she begins to kick her brother in an attempt to get him to release her. But she stops when Hikon scolds her, so she remains still and embraces him instead. The progress, everyone. And look how she appears absolutely tiny in his arms. Oh, so cute. Dahlia understands that Hikon is wicked in nature, yet she feels warm that he helped her today and begins to worry that she might get attached to him, which will jeopardize her plans. Despite this, she can't help but to wish to have a good relationship with Hikon. As she relaxes on her brother's arm, she starts to express her happiness and hopes that Hikon will start liking her too. But her joy gets the best of Hikon, who freezes in mid-step and throws Dahlia to the ground, while appearing incredibly frightening. What the? Sir, you do not have to yeet your sister like that. It went from fluff to rough real quick. Hikon then ruthlessly reminds Dahlia that he will never like her and goes away, leaving our poor girl on the floor, tearing up as she assumes they have already grown closer. However, Dahlia isn't the kind to let herself be brought down by such a small thing, so she agrees with her brother and simply prays that he trips and breaks his knees. It really takes an iron will to survive. She then jumps inside the carriage, sitting in the reserved seat where Hikon is supposed to sit, while Hikon simply lets her be, and the two of them remain silent during the ride. While Dahlia is still trying to figure out why Hikon yeeted her earlier, she hears a cracking sound and looks over to discover that the crack that Hikon had clenched before is growing larger and ripping the carriage's rear end apart. As the carriage begins to crumble, Dahlia clings desperately to the seat, cries out for her brother, and extends out her hand for him to hurry over to save her. However, Hikon remains frozen in confusion, a realization that brings back the memory of how much Hikon dislikes her. With her spirits crushed and her belief that her brother will never try saving her, she pulls back her hand and prepares herself to die in this way. The way she closed her hand and gave up because of what he said before is just so heartbreaking. But right before she falls, Hikon catches her little hand and pulls her back up. Big Bro does care, and I'm sure he just doesn't know how to express it yet. Dahlia is in a haze, but she realizes that Hikon saved her, and the only explanation she can think of is that her brother probably believes she is still useful as a Pesteros. Regardless of Hikon's reasons, she is relieved to have survived, and regardless of how he will become a villain, Dahlia resolves to repay the favor to him one day. Her escape plan remains unchanged, but she also chooses to continue acting as Hikon's naive sister. Dahlia is currently resting in her room and is likely to develop a fever as a result of the shock, with Hikon sitting beside her. Upon waking up, she convinces herself that she must be dreaming because there is absolutely no way that Hikon could be in her room to look after her. Even though she isn't feeling well just yet, she sits up, takes Hikon's hand, and declares that she will continue to like him regardless of whether he returns her feelings. She's too pure. She tries to change those remarks and say she can help him in this game world, but she becomes dizzy and falls back asleep. Hikon, on the other hand, looks at her sleeping face confused. He had scared and ignored his little sister, and he couldn't understand how she could still like someone like him. He was hesitant to grab Dahlia during the carriage incident because he was having troubling thoughts about saving the child, which were causing him to feel unusual emotions. His agitation when Dahlia did not hold his hand when she entered the carriage as he had hoped for was evidence that he was starting to feel strange. He was so focused on managing his emotions that he accidentally wrecked the carriage. LOL. Dahlia was the child that his parents wanted and the one he wished he could get rid of. But eventually, his feelings triumphed over his reasoning and he saved her. He noticed Dahlia embracing her death earlier, and he wonders whether it's because she witnessed her own brother hesitate to help her. She knows, and it made me teary, you dummy! It is difficult to unlearn the years of hatred, so Hikon now doesn't know what to do when his little sister wakes up. Be a good brother, that's it! When Dahlia awakens, she is surprised to see Duchess Blueport next to her, telling her she is very worried after hearing she almost got into an accident. Yay! Mom is here! Dahlia can truly express her feelings to the Duchess, and she reveals that, while Hikon saved her, she watched how he doubted it until the last moment. Duchess Blueport smiles and explains that Hikon may claim to despise her, but she believes that he is simply struggling to be honest, and that's why he hesitated to save her. Transcendentals are more into logical reasoning, but she believes that their time together heightened Hikon's affection, since Transcendentals are human beings with feelings too. Duchess Blueport then begins to tell her own story, saying that she too had a terrible personality, which is really shocking to Dahlia, given how kind she is. The Duchess continues and shares that she was arrogant when she was younger and believed that no one would understand her since she is transcendental. She even resisted her husband's advances at first, but as their relationship progressed, she warmed up and began to treat others with kindness. the Duchess emphasizes that people can change. Dahlia notices that Duchess Blueport has a warm smile and treats her like her own child. Even though her face is hidden in a mask, Dahlia can sense her sincere affection for her. But this world is a game, and Hikon is preset to go berserk. Now that she thinks about it, in the game, the male character, Luwain Blueport, the Duchess's son, became the head of Blueport in 4 years. So Dahlia wonders what happened to Duchess Blueport in the game. Did she simply intend to pass on the title to her son after 4 years? Or will she be gone by then? No, that can't be! Dahlia shakes her head, erasing those thoughts from her mind when she is interrupted by Duchess Blueport, who tells her that she plans to attend the ball to celebrate Hikon's ascension as the Duke, which makes her so thrilled to hear and cheerfully tells the Duchess that she will send an invitation letter. Dahlia convinces herself that she simply skimmed the game and the Duchess would definitely be happy living in her hometown in 4 years. I refuse to believe that this is a foreshadow because if it is, I riot. Dahlia waited for Hikon to visit her, but he never did. However, he does join her for breakfast the next day. They eat in silence as she mulls over the Duchess Blueport's words about how people can change, and she ultimately decides to open her heart to Hikon. So when Hikon looks in her direction, she grins broadly, making her brother flinch. He is falling for the power of cuteness. Just wait for it. Dahlia then makes the decision to offer Hikon some of her own food, telling him it's delicious and he should eat a lot, but he refuses to take any of it. Trying not to give up, Dahlia tightened her hand, giving Hikon the impression that she was about to punch him. So as an excuse, she decides to make her hands into a heart shape and grin while doing so, causing her brother to sigh and accept the food she offers him. Ah, the cutest! Walking around, she runs into Sebastian and tries to do the heart sign for him, causing the poor man to collapse and warn her that she should never do that in front of anyone else, because she might be kidnapped. Dahlia thinks he's just too shy to say it's cute or lovable, and she's now certain that she isn't the weird one here. After seeing Darlene's reaction to her heart sign, she decides to give it a go with everyone in the house and comes to the conclusion that not a single person could resist her charm, and that she has the whole household at her feet. However, when Hikon sees her performing the same move on one of the servants, he scolds her that she appears to have developed an odd habit of doing cute things in front of anyone. He's definitely annoyed that her cute heart isn't exclusive to him. Everyone in the mansion is already bustling with preparations for the upcoming ball, while Dahlia is practicing hard at dancing. Darlene believes she should have a lady-in-waiting if she plans to attend the ball, but Dahlia simply hugs her and claims she is all she needs. Nanny is her second mom. The 4 great families that produce transcendentals are treated as royalty. Thus, a lady-in-waiting is required, so Dahlia eventually agrees when Darlene insists on it. She is back at practice and trying her best because her first dance will undoubtedly be with Hikon. She finishes the song flawlessly and nearly has a heart attack when she realizes her brother watched the entire dance. Her instructor, Miss Mashu, takes advantage of the fact that the Duke is here and suggests they perform a practice run together, which causes Dahlia to panic because she has only perfected it once and is positive Hikon does not want to dance with her. Dahlia glances at Hikon with dazzling eyes, indicating that he should refuse, but Big Bro flinches, probably finds her cute, and misreads the signal, so he agrees to practice with her. Dahlia looks so small when she's with Hikon. Cutie. While they are dancing, Dahlia's thoughts turn to the game's female lead, whom she knows will appear 3 years from now. At which point, all male leads will become connected with her, when she accidentally stomps on Hikon's foot. Please do not eat her again. Dahlia starts to feel woozy from fright and starts to apologize, but to her surprise, Hikon only remarks that getting stepped on is nothing. I feel you, Hikon. That's also me to every beautiful character in this story. Then, Big Bro takes the lead, and Dahlia is relieved since they finished dancing without making any more errors. More scenes like this, please. Miss Mashu compliments the two before leaving them for the day. The uneasy silence pushes Dahlia to inquire about Hikon's purpose for visiting. She finds it hard to believe he would have simply come to watch her dance, and she is taken aback that he intends to discuss the matter of her lady-in-waiting. What puzzles her even more is when Hikon casually informs her that the Emperor has chosen her lady-in-waiting for her, and even Hikon believes the lady is the best candidate. Still reeling from the shock, Hikon scolds her, telling her that it is only standard for a Pesteros to be accompanied by a lady-in-waiting to the ball. Dahlia feels warm when her brother addresses her as a Pesteros, which she never expected, and it now feels like he's gradually opening up to her, exactly as the Duchess believes. My heart is happy. Hikon then informs her that she will see her lady-in-waiting at the ball because she's unable to arrive earlier due to circumstances. The most shocking part is that Hikon reveals that the lady's name is Adelicia Benitez. He believes the Emperor must have a purpose for selecting her, even though the Benitez family isn't particularly powerful. Dahlia mindlessly listens to him until she realizes Adelicia is the game's female lead, and she still cannot comprehend how she ends up becoming her lady-in-waiting. I am now hype to see them together. In the game, Adelicia is from Cannon, a rural territory known for its beaches, but also a prison for criminals. In Cannon, the most evil person is Vayrix, the person who trained the female lead to be an assassin. Oh wow, a female lead that isn't just all cutesy? The Emperor eventually saved her, and Adelicia now sees him as a father figure, and she becomes his shadow. I want to see her in action. When she enters high society, the female lead takes the noble name Adelicia Benitez, and this is when she meets the male lead, who becomes obsessed with her. However, this is meant to occur 3 years from now, so Dahlia gets confused as to why it's happening so soon. But she quickly realizes that, as the glitch in the game, she could be the reason. Now that she exists, the Emperor has a reason to have Adelicia serve as her lady-in-waiting and watch over the Pesteros Duchy. Adelicia is supposed to see Hikon when he turns 18 and has already awakened, but that is apparently not the case now, so she is concerned when the two meet, but other than that, she is really excited to see her game bias Adelicia. As the ball draws near, Dahlia comes to the realization that she should start researching the Transcendentals, who are bound to be obsessed with Adelicia. She starts doodling and illustrates the 4 male leads in a very adorable way. She's a bit biased, though. Look how sparkly Hikon is. Anyway, Aceras is the craziest next to Hikon, who serves as the Emperor's attendant and possesses holy power. He will leave the Empire to become the Pope of a nearby Holy Empire, but he will eventually go insane as a result of using so much holy power. Meldon, a member of the organization Adelicia worked with before, comes next, followed by Luwain, the Duchess's son. But she decides not to worry about them because they are not in the capital right now. Although she is concerned about Hikon, she resolves to hold off on worrying until she sees Adelicia at the ball. Dahlia is currently dining with her brother when she recalls that Hikon gave her a lot of gold accessories for the ball, which she intends to sell. She giggles secretly at the thought of her almost successful escape plan, and when Hikon asks why, she immediately uses her cuteness to explain that she's merely excited for the ball. Hikon has changed. He has begun to converse with her, even if only for little periods, showing concern that she must have a lady-in-waiting and no longer giving her an icy stare. Also, she comes to the realization that her feelings for her brother are becoming genuine and not merely an act, as she has stopped disliking him. It even upsets her to think that Hikon will end up hurting a lot of people when he goes insane later. Dahlia then recalls a Transcendental going insane in a ball, but since many balls occur each year, she doubts this will be it. Here it goes again with the nasty vibes. The day at the ball has arrived, and Dahlia's attendant, together with Darlene, begin preparing her, and she now looks gorgeous in her white and blue outfit that matches her eye color. She becomes shy when her maids compliment her beauty, so she pushes them out of her room and then begins admiring herself in the mirror. While waiting for Miss Mashu to take her to the party, Dahlia checks her treasure box and discovers her old diary. After remembering her past life, she actually quits writing a diary, anxious that someone will read it. She then wonders what she last wrote until she notices something that isn't her handwriting, stating that her touch will save so many lives. Even the letters are glowing. God, is it you? Her mouth remains open and she has no understanding of what the term means and believes someone messed with her diary. She feels whoever it is not a robber because her other valuables in the treasure box remain intact while her door suddenly opens. She hastily shuts her treasure box and turns around, stunned to see her brother looking so dashing in his all-black outfit. Sister looks cute and Big Bro is looking so fine. Hikon notices Dahlia clutching a diary, so she quickly hides it in her treasure box and shifts the conversation to why he's visiting her in her room. Hikon simply extends his hand and encourages her to go to the party, which confuses her because she expects Miss Mashu to accompany her. Hikon sighs as he realizes he must thoroughly explain to her that he is the one who's going to be accompanying her to the ball. Dahlia looks adorable with her flustered face, but she realizes that walking with him would be quite awkward. Yet she maintains her smile and holds her brother's hand. Cold Heart is melting! Yay! As the Pestero siblings descend the stairwell, Dahlia's delight at being able to attend her first ball makes her lips quiver. So cute. Then her curious eyes scoop the entire place, and it appears that Adelicia has not yet arrived, but she is relieved to see Duchess Blueport in the distance, who radiates such grace even with her face concealed. The Duchess is clearly charming the ladies until she spots Dahlia, so she waves at her while our precious girl cheerfully returns the gesture. The Duchess walks towards the siblings and takes the time to congratulate Hikon on becoming the Duke, and adds that he should take care of his sister, to which Hikon responds firmly that he will. Then Hikon advises his younger sister that the first song will be played soon, therefore she should not go away till then. Cuties. However, a servant approaches him and informs him that the first song will be delayed due to unanticipated problems with the band, making Hikon appear quite disappointed. Damn you, band! Big Bro is doing his best to get closer to his baby sister! While Hikon allows Dahlia to roam freely, he warns her not to leave the ballroom as he still has to introduce Adelicia to her. She then cheerfully goes to see Duchess Blueport, thanking her for coming. They settle down in the corner, and the Duchess tells her that she has heard rumors about a new lady in waiting, and Dahlia confirms that it'll be Adelicia Benitez. They converse further until the Duchess remembers that Cedric, the second prince, has gone missing. Though he has no route in Ouroboros Labyrinth, he is a transcendental pre-magical awakening who is so attractive that words can't quite express him. His bothersome characteristic is his relentlessness, which occasionally gets the people around him into trouble. The crowd suddenly becomes noisy, attracting their attention. Dahlia thinks it must be Adelicia. She quickly makes her way towards the crowd, where she is shocked to see the Emperor and wonders why he has appeared out of the blue. She is even more shocked to see a Ceres there. Despite his kind appearance, he has a morally corrupt personality, but is a prodigy who has already awakened his transcendental holy powers. Dahlia is considering a Ceres' motives for his continued presence in the Empire as the Emperor's attendant, when she notices Adelicia Benitez. Dahlia's heart races, and she struggles to process the excitement of seeing all the game's characters at once until she hears Hikon call her name. Dahlia rushes to Hikon's side as they warmly greet the Emperor. Hikon then questions the Emperor about his unexpected visit. He smiles and tells him that he is there to congratulate him on his ascension, but he's also actually looking for his son Cedric. The Emperor then offers Hikon a congratulatory letter, then dismisses them both and tells Dahlia that Adelicia will greet her separately later. Dahlia and Adelicia exchange blank looks until Adelicia greets her first, introduces herself, and promises to find Dahlia later. While Dahlia blushes to see her bias looking so pretty, she can't help but notice Adelicia's lifeless eyes. Adelicia grew up learning assassination and intelligence abilities as a member of a criminal organization. Yet despite her own struggles, she extended her hand to the main leads, demonstrating her compassion. Regardless of everything, Adelicia will not have a happy ending, so Dahlia wants to try to help her overcome the obstacles if she can. Her thoughts are interrupted when she spots a Ceres lifting his glass as if checking on something like a weirdo, leading her to question whether he will really become as dangerous as Hikon. Dahlia is approached by the Emperor again, who timidly asks for permission to take his son because he has heard that Cedric is hiding in their mansion. Hikon grants him permission to do as he pleases, and when he begins to unleash his power, causing Dahlia to flinch, the Emperor calmly clarifies that there is nothing to worry about, because it won't disturb the surroundings. Most likely, Cedric hides with magic, but if he purposefully manipulates energy flow, the Emperor can track him out. The Emperor then proceeds to the side, and there he finds his son Cedric. That's a whole new level of hide and seek, but oh freaking gosh, he is gorgeous! The instant the Emperor approaches Cedric, he begins to scold him before ordering him to follow silently. Before departing, the Emperor apologizes for causing a commotion, but Cedric continues to chit-chat with Hikon, causing his father to scold him again. Dahlia observes them acting exactly like in the game and notices that Cedric is very handsome. He is indeed. When Cedric looks at her, she panics and covers her eyes because she can't stand looking at him directly. But Cedric gives her a big smile, recognizing her as Hikon's younger sister. And he's about to say more when the Emperor yells at him again, so he says goodbye. He is a goof like his father. The siblings are worn out, so they agree to dance the next time. Then, Adelicia approaches them to formally introduce herself as Dahlia's lady-in-waiting. But what really gets Dahlia is her brother's indifferent response. Hikon just asks her if she doesn't like Adelicia, and after she states that she does, Hikon simply leaves, which isn't what she expects. Dahlia believes that if Hikon doesn't become obsessed with Adelicia in the future, the story won't progress and Hikon won't go into a frenzy, which means she will not die, causing her to jump and shout with joy and forgetting that Adelicia is still with her. Dahlia quickly apologizes, but Adelicia simply gives her a smile and promises to work harder so that she will be satisfied. However, Dahlia quickly holds her hands, joyfully tells her that she's really happy that she came, and asks to be called by her first name. Dahlia and the two soon find themselves talking comfortably. Dahlia suggests going to see Duchess Blueport together because she thinks it would be nice if the three of them would become friends, and she's sure the Duchess would like Adelicia. So they look for the Duchess, and when they get close to her, Dahlia notices that the Duchess is wobbling and drops her wine glass. Wait a minute, was this done by Aceres? Dahlia immediately approaches the Duchess to check on her, but when she tries to hold and calm her down, the Duchess shoves her hand away and begs her to leave. Of course, Dahlia doesn't want to, but Adelicia grabs her to step back, as she is certain that the Duchess is on the verge of going frenzy. I don't think my heart can take this! Dahlia's fear is palpable, and she begins to wonder why the Duchess of all people has to be the target when she shows no signs of aggression. It has now clicked. The incident involving the Transcendental going crazy and Luane taking ownership of the Blueport Duchy in 4 years are related, as the Duchess is the one who went berserk in the game. There were hints, and Dahlia blames herself for overlooking everything. She just stands there, unsure of what to do, for the only way to stop a Transcendental frenzy is to kill them. At that point, the thought of the Duchess smiling breaks her heart. The Duchess could no longer control her powers and began breaking everything around her. Worse, everyone is locked up in the hall since the Duchess's power is to form a protective barrier. Hikon has already directed a servant to quickly contact the Emperor, so Adelicia must monitor the Duchess up close, which would be quite risky. But she simply smiles at Dahlia and declares she is always prepared for death. Dahlia couldn't believe what she just heard as her brother screamed for her to come to him, but she stopped in her tracks when the Duchess calls her name. Even with her mask on, the Duchess is clearly struggling, but then she shows her usual smile and asks if they may talk, reminding Dahlia of the warmth she felt when she first held the Duchess's hand. Around the time the Emperor shows up, a sphere of light begins to flare around the Duchess, and Adelicia can't get away from it fast enough. This time, Hikon doesn't hesitate to rush and save Dahlia, but our girl pushes him away before mouthing something to him before the light catches her. Hikon is saved at the last minute by the Emperor, but all that occupies his mind is his sister. The angst is too much for my heart. Hikon is frustrated because he doesn't get why his sister said she'd be alright when it's obviously not. The barrier in the hall has vanished, so the Emperor orders everyone to get away. Now, the only obstacle is the light sphere barrier, which he tries to slice with his sword, but it leaves no marks. Then the Emperor admitted that breaking it and saving Dahlia and Adelicia would be extremely difficult. Meanwhile, Dahlia looks to be safe inside the sphere barrier, so she begins to search for Adelicia, and while doing so, she realizes that Hikon had tried to save her earlier, which warms her heart. Your big bro is going nuts outside! Dahlia eventually runs into Adelicia, who is shocked to see her in the barrier and blames herself for not protecting her. Our girl simply gives her bias a big smile, pleased that she is safe, and adds that the barriers appear safe, but panics when Adelicia points out to her that the barrier is actually shrinking. Adelicia begins to think of a solution when Dahlia proposed they find the Duchess instead, as she may have a solution. Adelicia agrees and looks amazed as she follows Dahlia's lead from behind. At last, they spot the Duchess, standing alone in her gown torn and her mask gone. She turns around, and just as I expected, the Duchess is gorgeous, even with the scars on her face. However, I did not expect to witness the reveal when she looked so lonely. Dahlia wants to run to her side, but Adelicia stops her since it could be dangerous. The Duchess claims that she created the sphere to confine herself, so no one could enter its bounds, but anybody could exit freely except herself. Dahlia becomes quite distressed, so the Duchess reminds her that a Transcendental in a state of frenzy can't be saved. So she intends to remain until the barrier takes her. No angel deserves such a cruel death. While the Duchess is still sane, she asks Adelicia if Dahlia would mind spending her final moments alone with her. Adelicia is hesitant to grant her request, but Dahlia takes her hand and reassures her firmly that she will be okay. After some consideration, Adelicia gives her approval and leaves to report to the Emperor, leaving the two behind. The two settle down and talk, just as they used to. The Duchess apologizes for causing a scene, and Dahlia, who is trying not to cry, simply shakes her head no. Trembling from an agonizing pain in her heart, the Duchess understands she doesn't have much time to talk to Dahlia. Still, she keeps talking and opens up that she has been living in constant fear, terrified that her powers will consume all she loves. She had no one to share her feelings with, which worsened her distress until she met her, the helpless infant she cradled in her arms who blossomed into a kind, beautiful, and strong woman. The Duchess is no longer lonely after spending time with her. That's why she believes Hikon will change in the same way Dahlia changed her. While she smiles her most endearing grin at Dahlia, the thought of missing out on seeing it all makes her sad. Dahlia bites her lip and closes her eyes because she is so frustrated that she cannot bring herself to believe that she can alter Hikon's fate or the plot of the game. In the end, the Duchess will die. Hikon will go berserk, and Adelicia will face a painful fate. Even though she couldn't bring herself to agree with the Duchess, she wants to give the Duchess a proper send-off. So she gives her the biggest hug possible to show her how grateful she is that she held on to that helpless, abandoned baby. Dahlia confesses how much of a mom the Duchess is to her, and while bawling her eyes out, she expresses how much she truly loves her. Who else is getting attacked by these onion-cutting ninjas? While they are hugging, a light begins to shine between them, causing the barrier to disappear. The Emperor and Adelicia hurriedly check on the Duchess, and they are surprised to discover that she just collapsed and calmed down. Dahlia's touch saved her! The Emperor commands that the incident be kept secret, while Hikon rushes to check on Dahlia, who is so distressed that she pushed him away. As a means of calming him down and saying sorry, Dahlia touches his face. Following this, the Emperor carries the Duchess to have her rest. The Emperor explains that the Duchess is safe thanks to Dahlia, making our little girl here cling to her brother and sob with relief. Thank goodness! Now show us all the fluff! The Emperor is now certain that Dahlia possesses the ability to purify the soul of a transcendental. The siblings accompany the Emperor to the carriage, and the Emperor invites Dahlia to the palace once everything is calmed down to discuss what happened today. He then tries a theory by shaking hands with Dahlia again and telling the same old joke about her engagement, which causes our girl to become so flustered. When Dahlia felt dislike, the Emperor sensed her purification decreased, meaning that Dahlia must like the other person for her power to be effective. Transcendentals are possessive, so if word spreads that Dahlia has purifying powers, people will try to take her by force, so he intends to notify Hikon about this the next time. He's really a good emperor. For the time being, he tells Adelicia about it and instructs her to protect Dahlia, which she gladly complies with as she admires Dahlia's toughness and wants to grow closer to her. Will you look at that? Dahlia has charmed another one. 2 days later, Duchess Blueport awakens, so the Emperor explains what happened, and they both agree to keep Dahlia's power concealed. The Emperor also recommends her to return to the countryside in order to avoid spreading news that a Transcendental has returned from a frenzy, which the lovely Duchess agrees to. She only wants to meet Dahlia once and will return home. Oh, Mommy's leaving. But at least she's okay. Meanwhile, Aceris is intrigued by how the Duchess returned to normal and intends to investigate Dahlia, the person who stood next to her during the tragedy. You better back off before Hikon kills you, 'cause he can. So guys, what do you think of this story so far? Dahlia pays a visit to the ever-loving Emperor to report to him what happened while she and the Duchess were within the barrier. She informs him that they talked, and she hugged the Duchess, causing an intense beam of light to appear, bringing the frenzy to an end. Dahlia is concerned about why the Duchess went into a frenzy so quickly, as Transcendentals normally break down slowly, which the Emperor also finds odd, so he assures Dahlia that they are already investigating the situation. After she finishes explaining what happened, the Emperor shifts the conversation and states that Dahlia can visit him whenever she wants if something bothers her. However, our girl simply stares at the Emperor, knowing full well that he is a jokester. So to make her believe, the Emperor presents her with a signed entrance pass, which makes her smile broadly. Afterwards, she dashes to the Duchess's room for an embrace. During their chat, Dahlia finds that the Duchess has decided to return to the countryside and pass her title on to her son. The Duchess then holds Dahlia's hands, smiling, and tells her that when they meet again, she should call her Mary. My goodness, she's beaming with joy, which makes me smile too. She sincerely says that Dahlia is one of the most precious people she has ever encountered, and she promises to pay her a visit once everything is sorted out. I don't hear a difference between Mary and Mommy, ma'am. What do you think? I'll miss her motherly figure. After the Duchess went away, Dahlia found herself suddenly alone, but thankfully, she made a friend to fill that void, and that is none other than our very gorgeous girl here, Adelicia. Dahlia is overjoyed to finally be able to have a face-to-face chit-chat with her bias, but she can't help but express her admiration for her while they enjoy a cup of tea together. Cuties. They enjoy a delightful time together, and the conversation naturally shifts to the Crown Prince Leonard, whose popularity surprises Dahlia. After Dahlia admits that the Crown Prince isn't her type, Adelicia also whispers a similar confession, which makes them both laugh. No, they look so precious! However, Adelicia becomes concerned if Dahlia does not want to discuss such topics because the people around her frequently grow annoyed, leading her to admit that she is unable to gain the trust of others. Dahlia realizes that because Adelicia is an assassin and must conceal her own identity, she may come across as unapproachable, causing others to distrust her, which saddens her because Adelicia is such a kind and caring person. After that, Dahlia takes Adelicia's hand and promises to always have her back, an act that causes Adelicia to be taken aback, and her cheeks to turn red as she expresses her gratitude to Dahlia. Dahlia blushes as well, since Adelicia is so pretty, and it's easy to see why the male lead's hearts will be captivated by her. Same girl, same. Speaking of male leads, Dahlia asks Adelicia if she is close to Aceres, which prompts our gorgeous assassin to take a serious tone and claim that they are not, which Dahlia is relieved about and wants to remain that way because she believes Aceres is a dangerous character. The sun is setting and Adelicia must return home, but she assures Dahlia that she will visit again tomorrow, a prospect that Dahlia eagerly awaits, and the two share a warm hug. After Adelicia's carriage leaves, Hikon tells Dahlia to be cautious since Adelicia shares everything with the Emperor, which Dahlia finds strange because it seems like he regards Adelicia as an enemy. She reassures her older brother that Adelicia is a nice friend, but she is left baffled when Hikon walks away after stating that her friendship with Adelicia is incredibly good, even though it's only been 3 weeks. Someone is jelly. Dahlia has seen that Hikon has grown more considerate of her since the event involving Duchess Blueport. Despite his normally expressionless face, he now opens doors for her, escorts her, and even holds her hand when she boards a carriage. Anyway, Adelicia pays her another visit today, and they discuss the approaching ball at the Imperial Palace to celebrate the Emperor's birthday. Since this will be Dahlia's first ball that isn't hosted by the Pasteros, Adelicia proposes that she organize a tea party to get to know people, which Dahlia appears to agree with, but she mentions that she still needs Hikon's consent. Adelicia smiles, confident that her brother will even write and mail the invitations to the ladies himself. She then whispers to Dahlia that her brother likes her more than she realizes, and she believes Hikon is jealous of their closeness. Wow, Adelicia is very attentive. And yeah, dear, you never pew-pew your heart to your brother anymore. After hearing it from Adelicia, Dahlia is overjoyed that she has become closer to Hikon. Now she just needs to save up enough money to escape, but she's also beginning to feel guilty about it. She comes to the realization that, while she is preoccupied with saving herself, Hikon and Adelicia's fate remain uncertain. She then decides to see Hikon in his study room, and seeing how busy he is, she can't bring herself to tell him about her tea party. But she is startled when Hikon states that he has already taken care of it. It appears that the maid, who is on standby when Dahlia is having tea with Adelicia, alerted Hikon about it. Dahlia expresses her apologies for burdening him with additional tasks while he is already occupied, but Hikon dismisses it, saying it isn't a problem, bringing immense joy to her heart. She then approaches him and embraces his arm, beaming a smile as she thanks him. She then asks if she can study next to him before going to bed, which he does not mind, so she moves a chair next to him. However, the desk proves to be a bit too tall for her, prompting Hikon to make playful remarks about her height. But when Dahlia catches a glimpse of him, she notices a genuine smile on her brother's face, which fills her with warmth. In that moment, they find solace in each other's company, enjoying the peaceful silence. Aw, she made time for her brother! And Hikon's little smile? Ugh, my heart is melting for these siblings. After a while, Hikon finds Dahlia has fallen asleep beside him, which reminds him that not long ago, everything was dark and he had no one by his side. Then Dahlia opened the door and let everything shine. He then carries her to her room and tucks her into her covers. And despite the Emperor's caution that being a transcendental would be difficult, he strangely does not feel lonely right now. After a few days, Dahlia begins to receive responses to her tea party invitation, and everyone indicated they would all come. Dahlia is surprised that all of the ladies would be accompanied by their mothers, which Adelicia says is common because they all want to greet her. Adelicia also discovered that one of the invited, Madame Henry, was close to the late Pestero's Duchess, Dahlia's mother, and wanted to send her daughter to be Dahlia's lady-in-waiting, which is new info to our girl. Given that her mother wasn't truly mothering like the mommy we know, I believe this madam is bad news. Adelicia goes on to remark that there are many ladies who wanted to be her lady-in-waiting, and she's overjoyed to have been picked, prompting Dahlia to fangirl and say she really likes her. Adelicia is completely smitten with Dahlia, and they have grown so close that she can't help but hold and squeeze her in bed, all the while admitting that she likes Dahlia as well. Dahlia can't help but want to pet her since Adelicia reminds her of a dog. Guys, I hope you're all okay, because my teeth aren't doing well from all the sweetness. On the day of the tea party, Dahlia cheerfully welcomes all the guests, including Madame Henry and her shy daughter. They are all having a good time and even plan to go boating, which Dahlia thinks would be fantastic, and she mentions taking Adelicia when Madame Henry suddenly cuts her off, saying that her daughter would have been the best lady-in-waiting for Dahlia because she possesses status and culture, which shocks Adelicia. I knew Madame was no good. Because of Madame Henry's remark, the entire situation became quite uncomfortable. As a result, Adelicia got to her feet to excuse herself, and Dahlia tried to stop her with her puppy eyes, but she just insists she's fine. After Adelicia leaves, all the ladies begin murmuring about her noble status not being enough to serve the Lady of Pesteros, which irritates Dahlia, but she decides to handle the situation by nicely informing them that Adelicia is such a kind person that the Emperor himself assigned her to be her lady-in-waiting. This surprises everyone. While Madame Henry is ashamed, but still, Dahlia chooses to accept their apologies, and the friendly atmosphere resumes, leading the event to finish peacefully. After they have left, Dahlia sits on the bench, feeling relieved and surprised when Adelicia appears, knowing she is covered for her. Adelicia expresses her sincere thanks to Dahlia, as our adorable little bean beams at her. After Adelicia exits the Pesteros gates, she is still somewhat hurt by the Madam's criticisms about her, but she quickly gets over them and is genuinely grateful for Dahlia's kindness. After remembering the Emperor's earlier statement about Dahlia's power to cleanse a Transcendental's tainted soul with a simple touch, she becomes determined to protect Dahlia from the hordes who would swarm her if word got out. After a few days, Dahlia goes to the Emperor to give him a report, and since nothing big happened, the Emperor simply tells her to continue guarding Dahlia. He then shifts the discussion to the upcoming ball, where he plans to introduce Dahlia to both of his sons, the Crown Prince and Cedric, who has once again escaped the palace. Playing Cupid, aren't you, Mr. Emperor? Adelicia inquires as to whether he intends to have Dahlia accompany the Crown Prince to the ball, but the Emperor quickly responds that Hikon will never allow it to happen. Adelicia gets a smile from him as he announces that she will be the Crown Prince's partner instead. She is speechless and cannot believe the Emperor is telling the truth, since being made a lady-in-waiting for Dahlia, one of the 4 great duchies, is already an incredible honor, but to be the Crown Prince's partner for the ball is far above Adelicia's league. The Emperor then casually drinks his tea while announcing that he has appointed the Benitez family as a count, causing her title position to climb unexpectedly. I really love his laid-back attitude as Emperor. Even more shocking to her is the Emperor's statement that Dahlia had visited him yesterday to remind him that Adelicia is deserving of appropriate treatment. Dahlia shyly stated that she is willing to grant one of his wishes as long as it is not about engagement, which the Emperor found adorable and regretted that he does not have a daughter, but he offered to appoint the Benitez family as count in exchange for a hug. Dahlia offers him a big hug, and the Emperor is startled as her touch is much more effective now, implying Dahlia's image of him has improved. Okay, we lost Mommy, but we got a new daddy! When Adelicia leaves the Emperor's study, she is still blushing at the thought of Dahlia when she accidentally bumps into Acerys. This cunning-looking man assumes she was talking with the Emperor about the approaching ball, but Adelicia does not respond, so they simply part ways. However, this guy appears to be plotting something evil as he looks thrilled to meet Dahlia at the event. Not going to happen. Hikon and Adelicia will not let you. The day of the ball has arrived, and Dahlia's attire today is ocean-themed, and our baby girl looks so pretty. Like a little mermaid. The coral hairpiece and the water-like pattern on her dress are perfect. The maids who came up with the plan are now raving over how gorgeous she is as she joyously looks at her bracelet, which Hikon bought for her and which she heard costs a house. When Adelicia shows up, Dahlia can't help but gasp in awe of her beauty with her purple dress and hairstyle. Adelicia returns the compliment and slyly thanks her for speaking with the Emperor, which makes Dahlia all shy. Adelicia then wonders if Dahlia's first dance is with Hikon, and though the siblings haven't discussed it, Dahlia believes it is. However, she is surprised when Adelicia unexpectedly asks her to dance with her after Hikon, an invitation that Dahlia gladly accepts. Following that, Adelicia gifts her with lovely-looking gloves that fit exactly on Dahlia's hands, while Adelicia sincerely asserts that they would protect her, which confuses Dahlia, but she swears to keep them. Oh, that will keep her magic from being discovered by other Transcendentals, particularly Asterisk. Adelicia then leaves while Dahlia waits for her brother, and Hikon, as usual, appears like a knightly prince in his black and silver outfit. While heading to the carriage, Hikon inquires about what happened at her tea party, and while she hesitates to tell him that a minor incident occurred, she decides to share it all with him, and she reacts with surprise when Hikon compliments her on how well she handled the offensive comments and pats her head, causing her to grin again. Their cute interactions are always so sweet. They've arrived at the palace, and Dahlia curiously asks when Hikon's birthday is, to which he replies that it's in the winter. Dahlia is going to talk about her birthday, but Hikon cuts her short because he knows it was in June, leading him to apologize for not being able to celebrate it. He likely recalls it since he got kicked out around the month of her birthday, so... Then a noble couple approaches them and begins commenting on the buzz at Hikon's ball, including statements about Dahlia staying close next to him, which Dahlia considers insulting, but she simply smiles at them. Unlike his little sister, Hikon glares at them coldly and cautions them straight out for being impolite. Now that they are inside the ball, Dahlia's eyes light up as she sees the desserts. She begins to chomp on them, unaware that the crumbs are all over her face, leading Hikon to hand her his handkerchief. When the time comes for the dance, Dahlia and Hikon both get in on the party. Dahlia, being the curious one, asks Hikon whether this is his first time dancing, to which he responds with a no. Dahlia already thinks it is the case, and while imitating Hikon's face, she already knows that her brother will just say this much as nothing, making Hikon embarrassed. Look how cute his face is! Dahlia is having fun teasing Hikon when she accidentally steps on him, prompting Hikon to return the teasing by claiming he is fine, and even relieved that she's discovered her talent of stepping on someone's feet. Which amazes Dahlia that Hikon can now make a joke. They now can engage in playful banter, huh? The news that the Crown Prince has come was announced after the dance, so the Pesteros siblings decide to greet him. Dahlia is excited to see the 16-year-old Crown Prince, Leonard Osmus Michelio. Oh, that's new! A Crown Prince with freckles! He's cute, and I'm hoping his personality is as well. Hikon greets the friendly-looking Crown Prince, who apologizes for being late and playfully blames it on his partner Adelicia, who simply smiles. Leonard continues to babble rubbish, even commenting on how great Hikon is for being a duke when they're just the same age. And without thinking, he declares that he too wants to become an emperor soon. What he just said is the same as wanting his emperor to die, which shocks Adelicia and Dahlia. He seems nice, but he's also really dim-witted. Finally, he bids farewell to the siblings and shakes hands with Dahlia, expecting that they will get along because they both have transcendental brothers. Adelicia then takes a moment to whisper her compliment to Dahlia on her beauty tonight, and as they walk away, she reminds Dahlia of their promise to dance together. The dance between Leonard and Adelicia has begun, and our girl is trying very hard to keep a smile on her face, while Leonard brings up Dahlia's special ability, which takes her by surprise. Leonard goes on to say that he heard Dahlia had the ability to prevent a transcendental from going wild, so Adelicia asks where he heard it and is startled to find out that it came from a Cerys, who he believes will be at the party. This leads Adelicia to excuse herself, as she needs to quickly find a Cerys before anything happens. Meanwhile, Hikon appears exhausted after chatting with the Crown Prince. But before they leave, Dahlia claims she promised to dance with Adelicia, which he accepts as long as she returns as soon as the dance is over. Dahlia goes to get some fresh air on the terrace because the song hasn't ended yet. However, due to the strong wind, the bracelet Hikon gave her falls into the bush as a person asks whether he is to blame that it fell. prompting Dahlia to glance up and see the second prince. "Oh, hi, sir. Yes, I did fall for you." Dahlia is taken aback by the sight of the second prince sitting on a tree branch, who offers to pick up her bracelet but asks that she keep their encounter a secret. His amazing magical talent astounds her, leaving her to recall that Cedric is both transcendental and a magician. She then decides to start a conversation with him, asking why he's not coming inside, but Cedric simply smiles, saying that he hates crowded places. Today is his brother's joyous birthday party, so he will have no choice but to throw a similar party soon for his birthday. He smiles again and casually tells her that it won't happen because no one wants to join in him celebrating his birthday, making the atmosphere awkward. Dahlia then recognizes Adalicia's voice and realizes she must be looking for her, but she also hears another voice. Just then, the second prince calls for her and invites her to accompany him for a while. In an instant, she slides towards him, startling her to the extent that she nearly screams. As she sits with him in a branch, Cedric puts up a barrier so they can now talk while they eavesdrop because, from their location, they can see Adalicia chatting with Aceris. Adalicia becomes wary of Aceris and questions him about how he knew, which makes Aceris smile because her reaction suggests that the person he suspects of saving Duchess Blueport is most likely accurate. It appears that Aceris used the Crown Prince, and then he thanks Adalicia for falling for it. Meanwhile, Dahlia gasps in shock when she understands they're referring to her, but Cedric remains completely clueless. She then realizes that Adalicia has left, so she turns her attention to Aceris and gets confused as to what he's up to, given that what saved the Duchess was purely a miracle, not her power or whatever. Since the show is done, Cedric decides to leave, but he hands her a magical piece of quartz and tells her that breaking it will take her back to the terrace, and he vanishes before she can say anything. Dahlia curiously examines the quartz and begins to panic as it accidentally breaks. And just like that, she finds herself awkwardly floating toward the terrace where Aceris is still standing. The silence between them is too loud. Run, girl, run! They both feel a slight sense of awkwardness, so Aceris decides to introduce himself first as the Emperor's direct attendant. Dahlia is taken aback by the fact that he knows her name, while this asterisk guy just smiles and says that her gray hair is so stunning that he couldn't forget it. Behind that bright smile of his, he suspects that Dahlia must have heard his conversation with Adalicia. But since Dahlia is already here, he decides to confirm his suspicions and requests for a handshake. Despite her initial hesitation, she ultimately agrees to his request. But after they let go, she sees that Aceris looks disappointed. With a smug face, he explains that it is because he is expecting her to be a unique individual. But now he realizes that he's wrong, which annoys our girl. Thank goodness she wore the gloves. At that moment, Dahlia hears Adalicia calling out for her, which irritates Aceris because they are still in the middle of their conversation. He doesn't want Dahlia to leave just yet, so he playfully invites her to ask him a question, and she certainly has questions, which Aceris teases her about because they are written all over her face. This playful remark gets under her skin, leaving her upset, but as she tries to go, Aceris blocks her path, insisting on talking some more. Adalicia is about to step onto the terrace when Aceris, without hesitation, grabs her and leaps off the terrace, just in time for Adalicia to enter. She is certain she hears Dahlia's voice, and when she finds Dahlia's hair accessory on the floor, she panics and gets Duke Pesteros' attention. "Girl, why didn't you scream for help?" Now all of this commotion will surely get out of hand once Hikon finds out. Aceris now releases his grip on the terrace, and as soon as they land, he rubs his head and can't believe Dahlia's hair accessory will cause him problems. He tells Dahlia that if they catch him, it will look like he's trying to kidnap her, causing a significant uproar, prompting Dahlia to question why he carried her down the terrace in the first place when he knows the consequences of being caught would be grave. But he simply smiles at her and tells her firmly that he has a plan. Nah, Hikon also has a plan for you when he sees you. Aceris, however, informs Dahlia that he cannot disclose his plans to her, but he believes that she will eventually know them in the future, causing her to react with unease. She then asks whether he consistently engages in secretive planning. That causes him to pause and explain that he has always approached things that way and cannot just change now. Suddenly, Dahlia remembers a scene in the game when Adalicia assures him, letting him know that everything is all right and that he has the power to make a difference. Yet she chooses not to comfort him, fearing that he may develop an attachment to her later on. Instead, she acknowledges he is right and that he may have some flaws, which surprises Aceris. However, before their conversation goes deep, He stands up and suggests that they go back inside to avoid any further complications. As she observes him, she ponders whether Aceres will have no choice but to embrace a darker path, which Aceres overhears, causing him to react in surprise. As she starts to make an excuse, Hikon suddenly appears from behind her and demands to know why she is there, causing her to turn to him in fear. Hikon demands to know what happened, so Aceres tries to explain everything, but our guy here isn't interested in hearing him out and would rather have Dahlia fill him in. Without hesitation, Dahlia fabricates a story about accidentally dropping the bracelet Hikon had gifted her. She goes on to say that while attempting to retrieve it, she came dangerously close to losing her footing before being rescued by Aceres. Hikon lets out a sigh of relief and expressed his gratitude to Aceres for rescuing his younger sister. Aceres simply smiles, letting him know he has fulfilled his duty, and then departs after casting a brief glance at Dahlia. I expected that from her, since Aceres doesn't appear to want to hurt her, and she must have felt bad for Aceres' character. Hikon then tells Dahlia that the ball is over, so they should go home. But as she tries to stand up, she trembles and cannot move her legs, prompting Hikon to carry her, making her blush. She holds him tight and whispers that she's really sorry. As the Crown Prince gets ready to leave, he notices the somber expression on Adalicia's face, so he directly inquires about what is troubling her, which catches her off guard. However, she uses Leonard's weakness and gently grasps his lap while begging him with her cute face not to disclose what he mentioned about Dahlia during their dance, because she wants to prevent rumors. Leonard is trying his best not to gush at Adalicia's charm, and he ultimately agrees with her, making Adalicia give him a warm smile, expressing her gratitude. He then seizes the opportunity to extend an invitation for tea in the future. "Sorry, Crown Prince, but I can't ship you with our girl." Following that, as Aceres prepares to leave, he is surprised by Adalicia's unexpected arrival. She firmly grabs his collar and furiously asks about his true intentions and the reason behind his secrecy. However, he just smiles at her, not seeing any problem with it. He playfully points out that she's just as mysterious as he is, keeping her true identity as Eustia hidden. The fear on her face is so obvious, and it shocks her that she can't move, leading Aceres to slap her hand away from him. Adalicia tries to stop him from leaving, but he uses his magic to make his exit as quick and smooth as possible, leaving Adalicia feeling powerless. On his way to his destination, he believes that when he shook Dahlia's hand, he felt nothing much. But when he grabbed her, he experienced a strange sensation of his head becoming lighter. And as he expected, Dahlia was the one who prevented Duchess Blueport from going into a frenzy. He smiles as he thinks that one day he will have Dahlia in his hands. And then, just like what he did with Blueport, he will use his divine power to stimulate Transcendentals and bring them to a frenzy that will drive the Frederick Empire towards destruction. I knew it! It was him who made Mommy go berserk! 3 years have gone, and our little munchkin has blossomed into a beautiful young woman who is now 16 years old. And a major event has unfolded. Aceres is now the Pope of the Holy Empire. Even in the Ouroboros game, he is destined to become Pope, but this happened faster than expected. In the game, he will overuse his holy power and go mad, but Dahlia believes everything will be alright because, unlike in the story, Aceres is not interested in Adalicia. Sister has grown, which means the big brother has become more charming as well. Dahlia understands as she braids Hikon's long hair that he will turn 19 in 2 days and has yet gone through his magical awakening. Regardless, Dahlia is determined to buy him a gift with the allowance she has saved. Her first option is a fountain pen, so she and Darlene go shopping for one with a sophisticated design. While the owner is looking for the right pen for her, Dahlia hears a familiar voice asking if she plans to give it to Hikon, and is surprised to find a handsome man with black hair. She takes in his entire appearance and immediately recognizes that he is the Emperor. He really looks so young! I need the skincare routine! Afterwards, the Emperor purchases a fountain pen ahead of her and intends to present it to Hikon himself. It appears that the Emperor is looking for you-know-who, his son, who constantly ran away and happened to see Dahlia in a store. After that, the Emperor glances at Dahlia, upset because she hasn't visited him in a year. I like how he never forced Dahlia to see him, though. Anyway, since she isn't able to buy Hikon a gift, the Emperor offers to help her, which she gladly accepts. They are currently walking around looking for shops, but everything she has in mind has been rejected by the Emperor, leaving her exhausted, until she notices a poster of a gramophone. Dahlia smiles, confident that Hikon will like it because he enjoys music, which the Emperor agrees with. But Dahlia becomes dejected when the Emperor mentions that it's a little expensive. Looking down at her purse, the Emperor believes her money is enough to buy the best model, which makes her very happy. Dahlia expresses her gratitude for the Emperor's company, bringing joy to Daddy's heart. He openly admits his enjoyment of their time together, and with a genuine smile, encourages Dahlia to visit him in the palace more frequently. The Emperor approaches the shop's owner as soon as they arrive, while Dahlia is preoccupied with choosing which gramophone to purchase. When the owner finally shows up, he offers Dahlia to buy their newest release for 490 dailons. Much less than Dahlia had anticipated and perfectly within her budget. Well, the Emperor definitely paid for it. After successfully purchasing a gift for Hikon, the Emperor escorts Dahlia back home. Dahlia expresses how much she had fun, prompting the Emperor to request a hug. Without needing to hear his full sentence, Dahlia anticipates his request and responds with a warm smile, embracing him tightly. However, their cute moment is cut short when Hikon arrives, snatches his sister, thanks the Emperor for returning her, and gives a half-hearted invitation that he visit them again. As the Emperor bids farewell, Hikon extends his hand, which our girl joyfully accepts, and the two make their way to their mansion. Well, Dahlia discovers after 2 days that the gramophone was actually 10 times more expensive than she had originally paid. He's spoiling her like a real daughter. I love to be spoiled too. I love their cute relationship. Anyway, Dahlia is now unsure whether her brother would like her gift after learning that the Emperor paid for most of it. But Hikon pats her head and smiles, expressing that he always wanted a gramophone, and thanks her, which relaxes Dahlia and makes her seem very proud. No, can we get a more smiley Hikon, please? They then celebrate his birthday with cake and party hats, making Hikon feel embarrassed yet loving it. Just their little celebration. Cuties. That night, Dahlia recalls the Emperor's statement that he believes Hikon will awaken this year, and that when he does, Hikon will be driven by violent behaviors for the first month. The Emperor notices Dahlia's concern and informed her that all Transcendentals must go through it, and that if anything happens, she may simply go to the palace and ask him for assistance, which she gratefully accepts. The Emperor then mumbles that after Hikon awakens, he's going to inform Dahlia about her abilities. Well, the Emperor is correct, since Hikon is experiencing an uncontrollable flow of magic in his body today, causing his hand to tremble. He requests Sebastian for transcendental documents, but all appear to have been destroyed during the last Duke's frenzy incident, leaving Hikon with little choice but to seek answers from the Emperor. However, the next day, he receives a response letter from the Emperor stating that he is busy and that Hikon should sort it out on his own, which annoys him. Daddy is surely playing favorites here. Today, even Bucky in the garden can hear the banging sound of the gramophone, while the poor servants are begging Dahlia to make Hikon stop, since they haven't slept in days because of the music. To her relief, her charm is still effective with Big Bro, and she manages to turn off the music. But Hikon's condition is obviously worsening drastically. Dahlia has been staying in his office because she is concerned that Hikon may become more violent with his people, as he did today when he lost patience and yelled at Sebastian. Hikon senses Dahlia is shocked, so he tries to calm himself while requesting everyone to leave. Dahlia then recalls the Emperor's instruction that all she needs to do to calm Hikon is offer him a hug full of love, which she is about to do when Hikon stops her, afraid that he may harm her. Don't stop there, go hug your big bro! Today, Dahlia decides to pay the Emperor a visit. It seems like the Emperor is truly busy with matters pertaining to Asteris, but Dahlia is too concerned with her brother to worry about Asterisk. The Emperor explains that a transcendental magical awakening has 3 stages. The first is the pre-awakening, which is what Hikon is currently experiencing and will last 3 weeks. The second is the awakening, in which the transcendental will lose their mind and destroy everything in sight for a week. And the third is stabilization, in which Hikon will gradually relax. Dahlia does the math and panics because it's between 2 weeks and a half, which means Hikon is about to awaken. The Emperor sees that she has not used the power of her hug, to which Dahlia responds that it's easier said than done, leaving the Emperor with no option but to propose that she use a standard approach. He hands her the manual on how to minimize the damage of a transcendental magical awakening, and Dahlia is baffled as she reads it. Hide sharp objects. Don't let ordinary people meet Hikon. Keep another transcendental watch over him. Lock him up with just enough food and water until he calms down. Causing her to tremble because it feels like she's reading a manual on how to deal with a monster, which she can't do to her brother. However, the Emperor encourages her not to think that way and offers her a magic scroll alongside a certificate of appointment, stating that she would now act as the Pasteros Duchess for a month, suggesting that she should lay off all of their employees while Sebastian handles all work-related paperwork. Dahlia has just arrived home, wondering what the magic scroll is, when Sebastian greets her. Hikon appears to have already ordered the workers to take a week-long holiday, and Sebastian adds that another magical scroll is in Hikon's drawer in case she needs it. Sebastian then apologizes for leaving her alone and mentions that no one has ever taught Hikon anything about being transcendental, and even their mother despises him, so he feels relieved that Dahlia is on his side. The next day, Hikon awakens with a severe headache and begins to feel pain all throughout his body, as if the magic within him is about to explode. His mind begins to play tricks on him, telling him that he is disgusted that Dahlia will never be by his side, prompting him to hurl the vase beside him. He then rings his bell, but no staff enters his room, making him even more enraged until Dahlia arrives. Upon frantically stepping outside, Hikon notices that no one is in sight. Dahlia promptly informs him that everyone is on vacation, which confuses Hikon, until Dahlia tells him that it was his order. He can't think straight right now, which makes Dahlia want to console him, but he slaps her hand away and requests that she leave as well. After he says he's going to work, Dahlia gets worried and decides to use the scroll she has under her sleeves, but she is shocked to find that it has already been burned. She can't believe that only a touch from Hikon caused it to happen. This is getting really dangerous. After that, she remembers that Hikon's office contains one more scroll, but it seems unnecessary to bother opening the door as Hikon takes down the entire wall. Things are heating up, and Dahlia is visibly terrified as Hikon gives the impression that he could kill her at any moment. Frantically scanning the room, Dahlia's heart sinks as she lays eyes on the ripped remains of the second scroll. But she is taken aback when she finds herself floating next to Cedric, the second prince. Hand in the pocket, the outfit, and elevating power make him look so extra attractive. He places Dahlia on a couch and states that the Emperor has ordered him to take care of Hikon, and before she can ask for more, he puts her to sleep so he can focus on battling the going berserk Hikon. We need her to hug Hikon, but yes, let's see some transcendental in action. Hikon gives into his thoughts and does what it says, which is to kill Cedric so he can't get Dahlia. Hikon activates a dazzling magic sword while Cedric flies towards him, but is unable to get near him due to the sword, so he immediately breaks it. However, Cedric is surprised when Hikon unleashes another powerful attack, causing him to be pushed back and stumble. This encounter with Hikon makes Cedric realize just how dangerous the situation has become. In that moment, Dahlia awakens and quickly moves towards Hikon, leaving Cedric puzzled as to how his sleeping magic was deactivated. However, Dahlia's desperate cry for her brother serves as a distraction, catching Hikon off guard and allowing Cedric to launch an attack. But before Cedric can do so, Dahlia jumps to hug her brother, forcing Cedric to deploy his powers downward, causing the floor to collapse. Thankfully, he's able to cast a protective spell on the Pistero siblings just in time, protecting them from serious injury. At the same time, Hikon has regained his composure and apologizes to Dahlia, who is still embracing him and has accused him of being stupid. In response, Hikon returns her embrace while smiling. After that, Cedric returns to the palace and Adelicia rushes to him, noticing his wounds and urging him to have them treated, but he merely claims he is well. After inquiring about the Pistero siblings, she is relieved to hear that they're both okay. But Adelicia is shocked when Cedric, clearly blushing, confesses to her that he's fallen in love for the first time. Sir, with whom? Hikon? Dahlia? Kindly complete the sentence! Hikon has been unwell since his magical awakening, and Dahlia has been looking after him while he rests in bed. Tonight, she sighs with relief as his temperature has significantly improved. In the game, after awakening his powers, Hikon is appointed as the Empire's commander and wields his iconic sword. This brings up the thought of Cedric rescuing her from Hikon, and she intends to formally express her gratitude to him once Hikon recovers. But for now, she simply intends to change the damp towel that is resting on his forehead. Hikon wakes up and apologizes to Dahlia again, and perhaps due to his condition, he becomes exceptionally sincere and openly expresses his gratitude towards Dahlia for always coming to his rescue, which deeply touches his younger sister's heart. He goes on to admit that he lied when he stated that he didn't like her and apologizes for saying such hurtful things to her. Dahlia, on the other hand, suppresses her tears and just says she can't remember it because it happened so long ago. The way he yeeted her on the floor is still fresh in my mind, so I'm glad he apologized. I bet it bothered him for a long time. Today, Adelicia arrives at the Pisteros mansion, but instead of visiting Dahlia, it appears that she means to meet Duke Hikon. Why is our girl looking so serious? As soon as she faces Hikon, she gets straight to the point and asks for an alliance. Whatever this is about, I might start shipping these two. They then call Dahlia and finally let her know that she actually has the power to purify a transcendental corrupted soul, which surprises her. To prove this, Adelicia cites instances where Dahlia used her abilities, such as during Duchess Blueport's frenzy and more recently when her brother Hikon had his magical awakening. After some reflection, Dahlia realizes that both Duke Blueport and Hikon have appeared calmer since their interaction with her. Now that Dahlia understands her power, she can hope for a happy ending for everyone. She can protect Adelicia from the dangerous Transcendentals and prevent Hikon's soul from corruption. Dahlia feels a wave of relief wash over her as she comes to this realization, prompting Adelicia and Hikon to provide her with comfort. Dahlia promises Adelicia unwavering support, but Adelicia firmly claims that they should be protecting her, leaving the young girl completely shocked. Later, Adelicia warns her about keeping her distance from Prince Cedric, sparking her curiosity about the motives behind it. Instead of directly answering her question, Adelicia gently takes hold of her hands and reassures her that they are simply concerned for her well-being. With tears filling her eyes, she pleads for her understanding, and Dahlia has no option but to comply. Who could say no with puppy face? 2 days later, the Emperor warmly welcomes Hikon and Dahlia, expressing his relief that Hikon's awakening went smoothly. Hikon, on the other hand, wonders why he wasn't told about Dahlia's abilities earlier. Hikon then learns that the Emperor worries that he might behave oddly if notified earlier. At that moment, the Emperor tells Hikon that he has been chosen as the commander of Frederick's empire, and without delay, they proceed with an impromptu ceremony, solidifying Hikon's new role. After that, now that Dahlia is aware of her powers, the Emperor is reluctant to request their usual hug. This makes her giggle, and she eventually embraces him warmly, recognizing that it is all thanks to him that she and Hikon are safe. Lastly, the Emperor presents her with a gift, gently taps her forehead, blows on it, and suddenly her body is enveloped in a comforting warmth, leaving her pleasantly astonished. The Emperor giggles at her reaction and quickly explains that he cast a spell on her to ensure her power remains hidden, as it is uncertain who she will encounter in the future. He then gives her a ring that conceals her power and tells her that by removing it, she can utilize her powers to help a Transcendental, which makes her extremely grateful. The Emperor also knows that she visited to say thank you to Cedric, so he orders a knight to accompany her, while also insisting that Hikon remain behind. After Dahlia leaves, Hikon warns the Emperor about his actions in trying to bring his sister and his son Cedric closer. Nevertheless, the Emperor urges Hikon to put aside his doubts, highlighting Cedric's difficulty experiencing certain emotions, making him incapable of liking anyone. This reminds Hikon of his conversation with Adelicia, who informed him that Cedric opened up to her about his feelings for Dahlia. After seeing what an out-of-the-ordinary guy Cedric is, Adelicia is worried that Dahlia will be troubled by the prince's unusual adoration. Adelicia then insisted that they should not tell anyone about it. Meanwhile, Dahlia has arrived where Cedric is reading a book, and she expresses her gratitude for his assistance the previous time. Her words make Cedric smile, prompting him to invite her to sit while he instructs a servant to bring them desserts, completely derailing her original intention of simply greeting him. Plus, she is powerless to resist the delicious sweets. While she eats, her conscience apologizes to both Hikon and Adelicia, who warn her not to get too close to Cedric. She then notices that Cedric is reading a book and gets curious about what it is about, but to her surprise, this guy just gives her an innocent smile and says that it's a romance novel. He adds that in the past, he couldn't comprehend such books, but now he finally understands, and suddenly, out of nowhere, without warning, this guy asks Dahlia to marry him. Sir, that is so straightforward. You probably just read the ending of the novel, didn't you? Dahlia's jaw drops in disbelief, but like Cedric, she informs him straight away that he is not her type. Still, Cedric doesn't back down and calmly asks her about her preferences so he can make changes. This catches her off guard, so she comes up with a quality Cedric's character would never possess: an abundance of love. However, Cedric assures her of his love for her, prompting her to clarify that she is actually referring to a person who loves humanity. Dahlia proceeds to provide him with numerous examples, like helping others and such, yet, unsurprisingly, he remains unable to grasp its meaning. Dahlia feels exhausted and frustrated because Cedric cannot understand her point of view. She then recalls how, in the novel, he is depicted as someone who lacks emotions. After that, Cedric unexpectedly asks her to teach him about love instead. driving her mad because she knows she has no chance of winning an argument with him. Well, I can volunteer as a tribute. If only Adelicia were here to help her, but since she has no one at the moment, she decides to deal with it and firmly accepts his request to learn about love. She offers her hand to him, leaving him confused, but willingly follows her lead. As they walk to the library, Cedric can't help but steal glances at their intertwined hands, his heart fluttering with a newfound emotion. She has the ring, which means my guy really likes her even without her powers. As they step into the library, she is surprised by its immense size, anticipating a lengthy search for the books they need, so Cedric offers to help. She simply informs him what books she wants, and Cedric uses his magic to locate them all, which really amazes her. She proceeds to give him all the books, informing him that they are his homework as she plans to educate him on the subject of love, taking on the role of his teacher. She then instructs him to read each book thoroughly 10 times and create a 5-page report for each, which he must submit to her. She emphasizes the importance of completing all his homework before he comes to see her. Without giving him a chance to respond, she swiftly vanishes, fleeing for her safety. She experiences a sense of regret as she distances herself from him, but she is compelled to do so because she fears that prolonging their interaction will lead to a deeper connection. At that very moment, Hikon catches sight of her, instantly bringing a sense of security to her. Not wasting any time, Cedric dives into the books, but he finds it difficult to fully understand the phrase he keeps encountering that to love is to sacrifice, because, in his view, humans are really just snakes disguised as humans. He only has 3 more books to read 10 times, and even though he has already memorized them after just 5 readings, a promise is a promise, so he reads them thoroughly with the intent to meet Dahlia again. He then pauses and recalls Dahlia holding his hand, and he intends to prevent her from doing so in future since his heart nearly exploded the last time. Oh my, Cedric is head over heels with our girl! After 4 days, Dahlia receives an imperial letter from Cedric stating that he has finished drafting reports and that she should come and check them. She stares blankly at the paper, tears it, and screams because she can't believe Cedric completed his homework in 3 days when it should have taken him at least a month. That nonsense homework? Yes, he took it far too seriously. Hikon then enters her room, astonished to see her in such desperate need of help. Dahlia reveals everything to him about the homework she handed Cedric, but Big Bro can only sigh, considering it was her own idea. She truly needs to see Cedric, but Hikon vows he'll do something about it. Look how far we've come, from attempting to escape her brother to now begging him for help. Dahlia arrives at the Imperial Library where Cedric is waiting for her to compliment him since he finished what she asked. She then looks at the table and sees a whole pile of report paper and expresses that she cannot believe he really finished it so quickly, leading Cedric to use his smooth moves, saying that he wants to impress her. Mr. Using your brain to make Dahlia? Scratch that. Make me fall for you is a crime. Dahlia hurriedly uses the papers to shield herself from Cedric's gorgeous face, shortly before she finds out that he actually has nice handwriting. Unfortunately, his reports are a little... To conclude, he stated that humans are trash and that he will need time to absorb the books. His reports are literally crappy. Crappy, but fast, so that's an F for effort. Anyway, Dahlia is now certain that Cedric despises humans, thus she doesn't understand why he likes her, considering her power shouldn't be working on him due to the ring. Well, instead of giving it any thought, she asks why he likes her right away, which surprised Cedric. He decides to confess, but this is interrupted when Baron Wales shows up. Dahlia recognizes the Baron as the author of the book, and Hikon appears to have invited him to ensure Dahlia is not alone with the prince. After she talks Cedric into listening to the author, he agrees, but Dahlia later comes to regret her decision because she's going nuts and is so sleepy from his lectures. Looking over at Cedric, who is engrossed in the lecture, she feels sorry for him since she is protecting herself from him and now questions whether he's a bad guy. Dahlia finally gives in and drifts off to sleep while Cedric creates a magic cushion for her. On the other hand, the Baron is so startled to discover Dahlia sleeping that he chooses to hurl a chalk at her, but the object never reaches her as it burns to dust, which confuses him. However, when he catches sight of Cedric, the prince gives him a piercing stare, causing him to shriek in fear before quickly returning to teach the lesson. Find a guy who will protect you while you sleep soundly in class. After 30 minutes of lecture, the Baron bids Cedric farewell and bolts away, as the latter does nothing more than rest his head on his hand in boredom. He looks at Dahlia. Cedric can't help but flush as he recalls her earlier inquiry about his feelings for her. Actually, it was when she attempted to selflessly sacrifice herself just to protect her transcendental brother. It must be his first time seeing someone so sincere to a transcendental, huh? Dahlia awakens from her deep sleep just as the sun is about to set and realizes that the magic cushion is the reason she feels so comfortable. She can't stop poking it till it explodes, and Cedric, who is casually reading a book, explains that pressure triggers it to burst. He rises from his seat and honestly asks if she feels uneasy in his presence, leaving Dahlia at a loss for words. This prompts Cedric to apologize, and while getting closer, he promises with a warm smile that he will strive to become someone she can feel at ease with. Dahlia couldn't meet his gaze, her cheeks flushing as Cedric asked if he could see her again. She simply nods in response, causing a smile to spread across his face before he departs. Dahlia remains standing there, her face still red, but luckily, the soft glow from the outside helps to conceal it, doesn't it? Cedric, that smooth talker prince. She pushes herself to calm down from the library to the carriage, but upon returning home, Hikon notices her strange expression and immediately concludes that Cedric must have done something terrible. Dahlia quickly calms him down, but my girl can't cover up her blush as she acknowledges that her heart skipped a beat earlier with Cedric. Not only does she not want to screw up her life right now, but there's another reason why she's been putting off liking Cedric. Because in the game, in every route, Cedric always dies. What? Nope, I refuse. Girl, you better save him, please. Although each version of Cedric's death is different in all routes, they all share the fact that no one will feel sorry for him, and he will accept his death quietly and without regret. That's just really tragic. Well, enough with the depressing details. Dahlia is currently lying on her bed, ready to drift off to sleep when Hikon walks in, gets a chair, and settles down beside her. Cedric appears to have been bothering Big Bro and intends to file a formal complaint to the palace, since he feels the prince did something to her, which causes Dahlia to panic. She quickly uses her power hug while patting Hikon's back, and just like that, his head immediately clears up. So Hikon decides to rethink his plan and will only reconsider if Dahlia tells him all that happened today. She takes her time explaining everything to him and smiles, asking whether he's now feeling reassured, to which Hikon nods. Hikon appears to have more plans for tonight than just knowing what happened with Cedric, as he shows her a picture book that he wants to read to her. Despite Dahlia's lack of interest, Hikon proceeds to read the storybook to her, and though Dahlia considers the story to be overly predictable, she takes comfort in her brother's calming voice. She lightly closes her eyes, her heart filled with joy as she holds Hikon's finger and drifts off into a peaceful sleep. Hikon has probably never been read to sleep, and Dahlia has never held their mother's hand while sleeping. No, they're really feeling their parents' shortcomings. After tucking her in, Hikon pays Adelicia a late-night visit to discuss how to separate Dahlia from Cedric, as he believes being with a prince with no human conscience is dangerous, to which Adelicia readily agrees and devises a solution. These two are merely organizing their own love affair, cuties. Anyway, I'm crossing my fingers that they'll see what a wonderful boy Cedric is. After a restful night's sleep, Dahlia is filled with energy and ready to eat breakfast when she notices that Hikon is still in the dining room, not working. She then learns that Hikon is on a 1-month work leave, which allows him to go on a trip with Adelicia. Oh, so this is their plan. Hikon has already outlined the areas they own on the map, so Dahlia just has to pick which place she wants to go. But our girl is still reeling from the shock and realizes that her big bro is trying to keep her apart from Cedric. Still game for a good time, she starts scanning the map and tells Hikon that a beachside getaway would be perfect, leading Hikon to present her with 3 options: Vesta, Alstein, and Cannon. Hearing the word Cannon reminds Dahlia that it is Adelicia's hometown, thus it is definitely a no, as it may bring up unpleasant memories for Adelicia. She next checks Vesta, but the sound of it makes her uneasy. But before she can cross it out on the list, Hikon suggests that they go there because the Emperor has also ordered him to carry out something someplace in that area, so she has no choice but to accept it. Bad vibes mean a bad place. The weather is perfect for their vacation, however, our lovely assassin is suffering with motion sickness, so she's looking pale. Dahlia expresses her regret for picking such a far location, but Adelicia assures her with a sincere smile that she's alright. Adelicia then looks outside the carriage and notifies Dahlia that they can see the ocean, prompting Dahlia to open the window, enjoying the sea breeze, and gets thrilled for an entire month of fun coming. They always say that right before anything horrible happens. Meanwhile, back at the castle, Cedric is unable to concentrate on work because Dahlia has left for a vacation 2 days already, and he worries that a month apart might cause Dahlia to forget about him. Just then, he receives a letter from Dahlia apologizing for not notifying him about her vacation, and she inquires about his love studies. I like how she made time to write him a letter. She then details some other books that he can read and claims that she too will begin writing book reports, and she thinks it'll be fun to read each other's reports the next time they meet. Dahlia clarifies in the letter that he doesn't have to learn how to love everyone, but she hopes he will discover the meaning of love so it will bring more joy into his life. Reading her message made Cedric's cheeks flush uncontrollably. He's so cute and completely smitten with our girl. Back to our girl, Dahlia is overjoyed when she realizes how nice their villa is. After Adelicia takes a short nap, Dahlia goes to her room where she is ecstatic to find a terrace overlooking the glittering silver sand and the ocean. Hikon then appears, placing not one but 2 scarves over Dahlia's shoulders, but she removes the other to wrap it around him, regardless of how it appears to be too small for him. Cutie. He then mentions that they have a dinner invitation from Count Williams, who lives nearby, and that since Adelicia is still sick, he believes it is better to let her rest and advise the servants to prepare her light meal. Dahlia finds this amusing and lets out a giggle praising his kindness, causing Hikon to become red in the face and saying everyone would act in this way. Oh, is Big Bro liking Adelicia after all that planning? Cuties. That night, Count Williams greets them warmly and offers them a tour of his gallery to pass the time until their dinner. The siblings look around, but one painting catches her eye because it does not appear sophisticated in any way. So the Count explains that it was created by the children who lost their parents in the recent landslide, and that he has been funding the kids since then. Dahlia praises him for being such a nice person, but the Count says he lacks in comparison to the Viscount, who is full of compassion and is currently caring for the children. The Count also mentions that the Viscount would join them for dinner, which intrigues our girl. They are now enjoying supper with the other nobles, and Dahlia's nervousness quickly disappears since everyone looks so inviting, making the environment more comfortable. Then, one noble asks the Count where the children he is sponsoring are currently residing, and the Viscount responds that it is in a chapel by the sea. His name is Asher Pendleton, and I was not expecting him to appear that pale and sketchy. The nobles begin volunteering to watch over the children, and they all resolve to visit them tomorrow, including Dahlia and Hikon, who has no choice since he needs to keep his little sis safe. Simply imagining Hikon with children causes Dahlia to chuckle, since they might all flee in fear of him due to his terrifying nature. So Dahlia teaches him to smile, which, by the way, looks adorable, pushing Hikon to smile as well. However, he does not show it to her. Instead, he pats her head and tells her that they must return home. I love it when they both smile. Ugh. Anyway, Severus Snape, Michael Jackson, or whoever that guy is sus. Please subscribe and turn on notifications for updates on this and all our other stories, so you can be the first to find out when they're out. Thank you so much for your support. See you in the next one!